Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, breaking news in the NHL. Was not expecting to go live. It was a wild scramble. Apologies for being a little bit late, a bit later than I like to be when it comes to breaking news, but a huge, and I mean huge, when you think about especially the prospect terrain in the NHL, a huge trade going down as the Philadelphia Flyers have traded Cutter Gauthier, coming off of his big World Junior Championship, coming off of all the hype around, yes, let's get him in Philadelphia. Big physical player. He fits what we're doing. 5th overall pick in 2022. He gets traded to the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for Jamie Drysdale and a 2nd-round pick in 2025. Jamie Drysdale, of course, the 6th overall pick in 2020. So the 5th overall in 2022, traded in exchange for the 6th overall in 2020, with a 2nd also going the Flyers' way. This is a huge trade in terms of the prospect, in terms of just blue chip prospects moving here, most notably in Cutter Gauthier. Jamie Drysdale has had more time to show who he is as a player. It's real. This is real, Connor. This is real. This is breaking news in the NHL. I don't go live unless it's verified, and there's a lot to break down in this one. Just first and foremost, the trade itself. So it seems as though, and this is coming, of course, from Pierre LeBrun, from Frank Saravalli, it seems as though Cutter Gauthier did not want to sign with the Flyers, and he wouldn't even meet with the Flyers front office to let them explain their plan. So I'm very surprised for not just that, this trade happened, but Cutter Gauthier, yes, he has a right to say, I don't want to play on this team. Yes, he has a right to say, I want to force a trade. He has a right to say that, but I'm shocked that he would not at least want to give it a chance when he really fits the Philadelphia mold. Big guy, plays a physical game, is a power forward player who's going to be on a great timeline. He fits the timeline with Mitch. Well, I don't mean that like today, but by the time he's in, 2-3 years into the league, Mitchkov's coming over. You have other young pieces. You got the Morgan Frosts of the world. You got the Owen Tippett's of the world. Not super young pieces, but a young team that he would add even more youth to in a few years' time. So yeah, and as Mark says, he could have that Lindros type of build type of thing going on here. So that's a big player moving out. Now, the return, the 2nd-round pick, it's hard to really look at it right now because it's going to depend look at it at least at the draft, if not a few years down the road. So right now, everyone's thinking Cutter Gauthier for Jamie Drysdale. So I'm shocked that he wouldn't even at least listen to what's going on in Philadelphia. He now moves to another team that has the same type of mentality, that youth movement. So he's not necessarily going, he's like, thinking the Flyers are losers and I want to go to a winner. Doesn't seem as though that's the case, because the Flyers are currently not a bad team, but they're not in the contending mode, I guess you could say, despite their strong record, I will admit. And he moves to a team that is even further back. So I wouldn't say it has anything to do with wanting to go to a stronger team. I would say it has to be some sort of personal thing that we could only speculate on, and we have no idea really, truly what the reason would be. So Jamie Drysdale going to the Philadelphia Flyers, he has been, hurt by injuries. He's only played one full NHL season, but he's at over 120 games in his career so far. 45 points. His best season was 32 points in 81 games. No points in 2022-23 in 8 games, and 5 points in 10 games this season, which is like a 40-some point pace. So Jamie Drysdale offensively is what he was promised to be so far. I'll get to my thoughts on the deal momentarily, but that's the Flyers are getting a good piece here. I'm not going to say that a lot of the people who are going with the bigger name was the side that gets the bigger name wins. I won't say that's necessarily what happened here. As Darren Dreger says, Flyers GM Danny Briere has been working on this for months. Gauthier wouldn't sign or even talk with the Flyers. So I'm surprised. I had just posted his career simulation not long ago as a reminder after what he did at the World Juniors. I looked at his Twitter page. He was saying, let's go. Let's get to adjustable contract right now. 3 years, $2.3 million. Definitely affordable for any team. And I think his production is even more than his current value of his contract. So I think that's a big boost right there. Absolutely. But on top of that, I think when you look at the Flyers themselves, like you got the Tony DeAngelo in there, but is it balanced out by Rasmus Ristolainen type of thing? I don't know if he was the type of defenseman that the Flyers need right now. Cam York coming up as well. I don't dislike Jamie Drysdale. I'm just not exactly 100% certain where it fits on the Flyers blue line at the moment, but that's more just me thinking about the organization. When I think about him as a player, he's done fine so far in only 120 games, whatever. A lot of injuries, big minutes very quickly, thrown over his head. He's trying to swim. 7% even strength defense, 7th percentile. Of course, that doesn't look pretty, but when you look at the larger numbers, he's playing against, the average levels of competition. He's playing with good levels of teammates. He's solid enough on those primary assists, and he's average enough pretty much everywhere. It's just that even strength defense, which needs to continue to come and which takes a hit being on one of the worst teams in the league. So that's, I think, you got to take it with a grain of salt on Jamie Drysdale. When you think about this year, 5 points in 10 games and 32 points in 81 games a couple of years ago, I think you need to take that into consideration as well. So that's Jamie Drysdale. The Flyers got a good piece. I'm not exactly sure where he fits right now. I need to take a deeper look at the Flyers, and we will do that. But when I go and look at the card for Mintyukov, as Jay Fresh highlights, I guess the Ducks felt that having this guy made Drysdale expendable. So maybe that's the case, because they had a very strong blue line at one point. You got Mintyukov in there, you got Drysdale in there, add in everyone else, whoever, Cam Fowler, you add in, Radko Gudas. They had enough to say we're comfortable right now surrounding our young guys like Mintyukov with those guys like Fowler, Gudas, some older pieces who have been, who are able to mentor those guys, and they maybe but they saw him expendable when Mintyukov brought what he brings, right? So, and that's a good question as well from Landon. Does Drysdale fit in a Torts system as well? That's another question to ask right there. I think that's all I want to show on the Jay Fresh card. Yeah. So going back to Cutter Gauthier, the prospect that the Ducks get here, that's a crazy pickup right here. Throw him in with, who am I thinking about? Zegras, Terry. I'm on the spot here now, but I have to think of who are the other young pieces in Anaheim. Mintyukov, like we said. I'm blanking on names. Give me a second. This was really just go live and think about it later. Who are the Ducks' other young pieces that he fits the timeline for? Cutter Gauthier. Vetrano's been doing well. Mason McTavish, of course, that's what I'm trying to think of. Mason McTavish, Leo Carlson. Man, what's wrong with me? I'm not thinking about these names. So throw Cutter Gauthier and his timeline into the mix of 18-year-old Leo Carlson, 19-year-old Pavel Mintyukov, 20-year-old Mason McTavish. Incredible deal, I think, for the Anaheim Ducks. Now I'm getting into my thoughts on it. I think this is a slam dunk win for the Ducks, taking advantage of a situation that the Flyers are really upset that they found themselves in. Could they have gotten more value for a normal deal? Perhaps. But if it is in fact the case, as Darren Dreger says, that the Flyers have been working on this deal for months, then it's common knowledge at this point from general managers around the league that Danny Briere wants to move this player, and he needs to move this player because he won't even speak to the team. We can't afford an Adam Fox situation. So they get to, and a good point as well from Dawson. The Ducks get a little bit worse on the blue line, helps with the tank a little bit. They get another piece who will come later on when they want to be competitive. He joins their timeline. It's an expendable piece. Even Zellweger, of course, great point from MVP. Gibson trade coming next, perhaps. Dostal moves into the crease. This is a really good trade, not just in trade value, but in terms of what this organization is trying to do. So a fantastic deal by the Anaheim Ducks. Justin saying Flyers will be moving one, if not both, unrestricted free agent defensemen at the end of the trade deadline makes more sense. Yes. So I'm not saying Drysdale doesn't fit the team, like doesn't have a spot on the team. I'm just saying I'm not sure if he fits exactly what their image is, I suppose. Like when you think about Cutter Gauthier and what he would bring to the Flyers versus, like, if I'm not saying Drysdale's a Tony DeAngelo, but if you put an offensive defenseman like Tony DeAngelo out there and you see how he's been doing in Tortorella's system, well, then you probably have more concerns for Drysdale on Philadelphia than the concerns you would have for him on Anaheim, if that makes sense. So I've been talking a lot. There's a lot that many people here got to say. We do breaking news and analysis here in the real world of hockey, plus NHL 24 franchise modes, career simulations. I do a new career sim with Cutter now. We did the career sim of Cutter Gauthier in Philadelphia on NHL 23. Now we got to see what happens on NHL 24. Good point here from Big Handsome. Cutter may never have more value. His highest value was when he was drafted, and his value has just been going down since then, since he hasn't spoken to the organization. So his value was never going to be higher than it was now after the World Junior Championship. Well said. Bummed to lose him, but it was never going to happen. Drysdale's a great return. So yes, don't get me wrong. Drysdale's a great return in this situation. It's just that in terms of pure value, the Flyers, the Ducks win this by a long shot. When you take everything that I just said into consideration and take all the context into account, then it's a much fairer deal. But when you just look at pure value, wow, what a day for the Anaheim Ducks. What a day. STB 55 Flyers get another Keith Yandel. And he didn't do so well there either, right? Good prospects who fit the timeline. Yeah, super loser, you're right. You're exactly right. So that being said, let's get back into the analytics here. When I look at Jamie Drysdale here on the Philadelphia Flyers, so he has a normal contract this year and 2 more at $2.3 million. So if we look at where he fits into the Flyers now, the Flyers may be shifting into let's start making the playoffs mode, not competitive mode. But when you look at their record this season, I thought that the Flyers would be the worst team in the league this year. Honestly, I thought they would be a bottom 3 team. They're 20, 13, and 6, and they just got a little bit better. So when you look at the blue line now, Sanheim, Ristolainen, Walker, Drysdale, York, and Stahl, and you throw in whatever Sealer and Zamula in there. So I like this blue line. It's stronger, but does John Tortorella think it's stronger? Will he utilize those players to their strengths? I don't know. I can't call myself an expert on John Tortorella, but he's not exactly known for utilizing those players to their best, and he tries to fit them into his own system. It's too bad Ryan Ellis is injured, and even where's do they still have money on Tony DeAngelo in here? Yeah, there he is. They're still paying Tony DeAngelo another $1.66 million for the next couple of years as well. So that doesn't help. But yeah, the Flyers do get stronger today from this trade. But when I think about their young forwards, like Cutter Gauthier was a huge piece of that. Yes, got Tyson Forster, Bobby Brink, Owen Tippett on that younger side as well, Morgan Frost, Matvei Michkov. Cutter Gauthier was one of those top guys for the future. So that really does hurt their plans, I think, in that regard. It's not unrecoverable. It's not like they just traded their biggest prospect for junk and they have no one else in the system. But Cutter Gauthier was going to be a big piece. They drafted him 5th overall for a reason, and he fit that Flyers mold. When I look at the Anaheim Ducks now, they get a little bit weaker, which is good for them. Now their blue line is Fowler, Gudis, Lyubushkin, Lacombe, Minchikov, and Vakanainen, which is a little bit weaker, especially when you're considering that Drysdale put up 5 points in 10 games, which is what kind of pace here? 5 points in 10 games is a 41-point pace after he had scored 32 in 81 a couple of years ago. So 41-point pace. Take him out of the equation. You tank a little harder. You're still moving out other players, maybe a John Gibson trade, maybe other UFA trades in there. You're going to tank a little bit harder. You're a little stronger for the future. And all it took was a defenseman that became expendable thanks to Minchikov and Zellweger and Lacombe, and you throw in a 2nd-round pick in 2025, you have 2 of those in 2024. So this is a slam dunk win by the Anaheim Ducks when you take all that into account. Pure value, it's a slam dunk win. When you take it into consideration and take into consideration the context that I'd mentioned about how Gauthier wasn't going to be staying in Philadelphia no matter what, well, then it's a much more even deal, then I guess you could call it. Yeah, Cam York hasn't been bad. MVP Gaming, if I'm the Flyers, I don't know if I take a risk on Drysdale. He's great when healthy, but he usually isn't healthy. If I'm Philly, I ask for a Luneau and an Olwen Zellweger package and maybe a pick. So that's the thing as well. Yes, they got a solid enough return, taking the consideration into account. But if they're going for a defenseman on Anaheim, maybe you go for one of those other ones who doesn't seem to be as injury prone. Right? So when I look at Cutter Gauthier, he's been doing great in the NCAA, Boston College, 23 points in 17 games, 37 and 32 the year prior. At the World Junior Championship, he's just coming off of a 12-point tournament, 12 points in 7 games. He was tied for the tournament lead in points as well. So you couldn't ask for more from Cutter Gauthier. His value was never going to get higher. It was going further and further down every day that passed, and the league knew that, and Daniel Briere knew that. So for him to be coming off such a performance, that was so strong, and to still get this value, which is a little underwhelming, you would think, in terms of, just value for value, goes to show how much the league was probably leveraging that against the Flyers. So Vasi's already starting to look at some simulations here. Amazing. I'd have to I'd have to run a sim maybe. I'd have to run a sim perhaps. Pat's GM, Pat Verbeek, had tried to swing a deal to get another high pick at the 2022 draft, so we could also try to draft Cutter Gauthier. And so that means the Ducks have been looking at Cutter Gauthier ever since the draft. They've been trying to get Cutter Gauthier since 2022. And in that draft, where were the Ducks drafting here? Is that when they got Minchikov? Yes, it is. So that's interesting. So they got Minchikov at 10, right? So Cutter Gauthier went 5th. This was a good draft class. Gauthier, Jiricek. This was a strong draft class, and he's the only one of the top 10 to not make his NHL debut just yet. So yeah, I'm not afraid about that at all. He's been looking very, very good. Lazy Worker says stunned. Cutter gave an interview with Empty Netters in which he appeared fire up to play for the Flyers. Yeah, that's what I said. That's what I said. He seemed to be very excited to be in Philadelphia. When I guess that's what you're supposed to say when you get drafted. But even since a little bit after that, it was all positive in terms of the media. But it seems as though it's very clear that behind closed doors, that was not the case. That was not the case. So I think that's about it for like analysis from Twitter here. Is this what, can I play this? Or I don't think there's going to be any copyright here. Let's play this. There's gonna be any copyright. Hold on, let's play this again. Hold on, let me play it with sound. Give me a second. Let me see this. Okay. Moving towards. Great. Thanks. Now I have to go and mute that out when I go back and edit this. Apologies. Great. So it seems like he was fired up. But maybe he didn't like John Tortorella. I don't know what to say. Of course, there has to be the one time I play something, there has to be language in it. So I'll have to go back and cut that out. Apologies for that. But Cutter Gauthier seemed fired up enough to be playing for the team. Oh, you can't hear it? Oh, great. That's even better then. Well, you could have read it, I guess, I suppose. But yeah, I didn't anticipate playing any sound here, so I didn't have the volume ready to go. Sorry about that. Let me get back to what some of you are saying here in the comments, as I've said enough on my side. I think I think my thoughts are pretty much clear at this point. So a lot of thoughts here from a Flyers fan coming in. McAfee sellout. Sell McAfee. Cutter's going to regret this. He might in terms of what the Flyers become, but I think the Ducks are on a similar path for him to also have success. Flyers never needed a pretty boy. I don't know if that's exactly what I would say, but I hear what you're saying. As a Flyers fan, that's exactly how I'd be feeling. Good riddance. Have fun with the booze for the next 10 years. I hear you. I don't disparage you for having those feelings, not at all. But at the same time, I think that Cutter Gauthier must have had some other internal thing going on. There must have been some deep reason that no one heard about. And if it's been months that Briere's trying to move on from him, it must be long enough that he's made that clear, right? Let's see. Sorry, just scrolling through some of the comments here. Flyers needed a 1A right-handed defensive. Yes, I hear that as well. So if Jamie Drysdale can be that, if Jamie Drysdale can stay healthy and be a 50, 60-point guy, whatever his potential might be to become, well, then that's great. That's fantastic for the Flyers. It's sad to lose out on Cutter Gauthier, but it's a great move for them in terms of getting what they needed. And you know what? Like I said, they have other good young players. They could survive without Cutter Gauthier when having Forster and having Frost and having Michkov. And that's just looking at some of the bigger names. I didn't even scroll further into the Flyers organization, which I won't right now, but there's a lot of good young pieces there for the Flyers. They get something they need in a right-handed defenseman, but will he stay healthy enough to be that defenseman? Can he be a top pairing guy? Yeah, big day for the NHL, Nylander extension, and now this trade here. As Legend says, I like Drysdale. If he stays healthy enough, that's great, but if he still has that potential on draft day, then the Flyers will come away with this saying, hey, we did what we could. But if Drysdale stays as a 30-point guy who's injured more often than not, boy, that really hurts. And you know what? As a Flyers fan, that's true, eh? First you got Nolan Patrick, then Cutter Gauthier. Those are 2 top 5 picks that will never play for the Flyers. or never, well, not never play, but will never become what what an organization thought they'd become on draft day. 2 top 5 picks right there. That hurts. I hear you. As a Flyers fan, I absolutely can understand what you're saying, and I don't knock you for that. So Cutter Gauthier, we saw his stats. We know how impressive he is. The Ducks are going to be able to tank a little bit harder. They get another player who's going to be helping their timeline. And the Ducks get another guy who is going to be in that same age group as well. Not just the timeline of the team, but also in that same age group as everyone else who are their blue chip guys. McTavish 20. Who else was I saying? Carlson 18. Mintyukov, what, 18, 19? If I look at the Flyers, actually, maybe I should look at that. Flyers, who else do they have now in their system? Yeah, Anaheim steal for sure in terms of value. But when you take the context into account, it was essentially the most the Flyers could get, and I applaud Briere for getting a former top 10 pick and a second in exchange for a guy who was never going to play for your team. You got to give props to the GM for doing that if that was the case. Yeah, I agree with you there, Justin. Good point. Drysdale, I couldn't tell exactly how long he's out right now. If anybody has that, they could pull it up. I'm just looking for the system here for the Flyers. So you take out Cutter Gauthier, but you still have Denoyer, Tuamala, Wisdom. Yeah, I wouldn't, like, these are some good younger pieces, but I wouldn't say any of these guys are major. So of all the big pieces here in Philadelphia, Michkov is the biggest. I think Cutter Gauthier was probably number 2. Tyson Forster's been great and stuff like that, but I think that he's an easy number 2. So I'd say the second best prospect probably in the Flyers system. I know Bobby Brink's been doing very well. Forster's looking good, but I would think come 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now, Cutter Gauthier is number 2 in the current Flyers pipeline. He moves out in exchange for a guy who you're essentially taking a gamble on. If he's good, or if he's great even, that's a positive. But I still think it's a gamble when you look at his health and how he, yes, had to eat big minutes, yes, was on a bad team, but at the same time, not giving me super impressive numbers when we look at the deeper analytics of it all, right? Oh, he's out 4 to 6 months? Yikes. Tom saying upset that the Red Wings didn't go for Cutter. Flyers having extreme. Yeah, I hope Drysdale does well. I do hope Drysdale does well. I think he can do well. It's more the other factors that are beyond his control. Connor, hey, you had a question about NHL 24. How much do good goalies matter for franchise mode? Not too much at all. Not too much at all, my friend. Just go with someone who seems to simulate well. Don't listen to the overalls. Don't listen to that. So Drysdale, as I said, playing minutes that are probably over his head on a bad team. So these numbers should be taken with a large grain of salt, but they're still not super reassuring at 7th percentile of even strength defense. But still, the even strength offense, the goals, the primary assists, playing against decent levels of competition with good levels of teammates, that's all good. That's enough for the Flyers to take a gamble. Now the question will be, what does he become? What does he become? Ladies and gentlemen, of course, just another reminder, subscribe if you haven't already for ongoing breaking news and analysis in the real world of hockey. If you're a Ducks fan, we did an NHL 20 Ducks franchise mode. If you're a Flyers fan, we did an NHL 22, or was it 23? Or no, 22. Yeah, NHL 22 Flyers franchise mode. We're currently doing NHL 24 Vancouver Canucks, and we did a Cutter Gauthier career simulation if you want to see that one. Oh yeah, that's true. Ristolainen's analytics before and after Torts. I'm a Ristolainen truther. I know he's been horrible at times, but I think Ristolainen has the ability, has the IQ. I mean, well, the IQ. I think that's the part that hurts his game the most. I think he has the physicality. I think he has the ability to block shots that makes him very useful. Oh, yeah, exactly. Those high overall goalies getting the 880s, I hear you. So, Brian, the terms of the trade again, it is Cutter Gauthier, traded from the Philadelphia Flyers to the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for Jamie Drysdale and a second-round pick in 2025. So not this year, not this upcoming draft, but the year after that. Yeah, I like Ristolainen. I like him. So Legend makes a good point here. It could be a win-win. It could be a win-win. Have a good night to you as well, my friend. I'm glad that you're able to find some positives in this night, as upsetting as it is to lose out on Cutter Gauthier. Of course, thank you for being here, and thank you for adding your thoughts, my friend. Appreciate that. So yeah, it could be a win-win. And yes, Drysdale's injured. He's out for 4 to 6 months. He only played 10 games this season. It could be a win-win, but I do see it. Even if both players are at their best, I still take Cutter Gauthier. Could that second-round pick become something? That's still yet to be seen. I still think because of the injury risk, it's even today, forget the, as I've said a few times now, take the context into account. It's a good deal for the Flyers, especially considering that the league knew that it was not going to be, he was not going to be playing with Philadelphia. The website I use for the advanced stats, that is excuse me, JFresh Twitter, on Twitter, JFresh Hockey. And it comes from Top Down Hockey, excuse me. Top Down Hockey from JFresh Hockey. That's what I use to usually get those. He just got healthy? Is that, was he coming off of a 4 to 6 month injury? Sorry, because someone in the chat had said that he was 4 to 6 months. So sorry, he was coming off the 4 to 6 months. Is that what you're saying? You think that Drysdale has a higher ceiling than Cutter? That's an interesting thing. I think if you look at Drysdale in 2020 versus Gauthier in 2022, then yes, I think I agree that Drysdale has the higher ceiling. But now when I take the injury considerations into account, the ceiling gets a little bit lower, right? Yeah, Jamie's back. Perfect. Thank you. So yes, do the Flyers need another forward? I don't know. When you take into consideration the Forsters, the Frosts, the Bobby Brinks, okay, I see it. Do they need more help on defense than forwards? Yes, I agree. But I'm not sure if Drysdale is exactly that guy who fits into that system. That being said, I think when you have a guy like Drysdale who could be your top pair guy, who's a former top 6 pick, who's shown the potential to be a point every other night kind of guy, I think yes, Drysdale can be that guy. He can be that guy, but I don't know. He's played big minutes in Anaheim. Let's go look at what kind of minutes exactly has he played. Let me pull this up before I show you the screen. I want to see exactly what kind of minutes Drysdale has played so far in his career. Yeah, 1C for the future. That's what they need there in Philadelphia for sure. So yeah, the 4 to 6 month injury was last year. I'm sorry about that. Just I have a lot going on. I'm scrambling a lot of information at once here. It was exactly, it was very much a let's go live ASAP type of thing. So let me just take this comment off and we'll go to this screen here. There we go. So Drysdale right now in his career averaging 20 minutes per night? Yeah, so he was averaging big minutes, 20 to 24 minutes per night. Yeah, he was playing okay, so he wasn't injured. I'm sorry. He's played 10 games and he's healthy, so he should be able to go in Philadelphia right away. Averaging 21:35 of ice time tonight in those ice time per night through those 10 games so far. So he's playing big minutes. I think that he can be that guy. He's scoring a point every other night as a guy who's playing over 20 minutes per game. I think that is very valuable for the Flyers. Now the question will be, does he fit the system, number one? And number two, can he stay healthy? Cutter Gauthier is going to be a strong power forward with a great shot, with the ability to find Michkov perhaps. He had, 2 goals, 10 assists, we said, 12 points in 7 games of the World Juniors. Cutter Gauthier is a very good prospect, but as that comment said, perhaps he's more of the safe prospect. So I think that's something to be said. I don't want to start, throwing out copium or anything like that and just saying random things like, oh, Drysdale actually has Norris upside while Gauthier could just be a power forward bust. I'm not going to say that just yet, but I do think the potential is there for Drysdale to become a big number 1 guy and Gauthier to maybe just end up being a top 6 forward. But at the same time, he could become an elite first line left wing power forward, while Drysdale may just be like a top 4 guy who's always marred by injuries. It could go either way there. It definitely could go there. And that's true as well. Philadelphia is a tough market. Even if Gauthier panned out like Lafreniere, then Philadelphia would have viewed him as a bust while he was developing. Definitely helps his development, I would think, going to the Ducks and being in a market with a little bit less pressure. Plus, Tortorella's not your coach. You're with other young guys who are also growing at the same pace as you are. I think that also has a lot of value for Cutter Gauthier. Now, any idea why he didn't want to play for the Flyers? No idea. That will be the big thing to come out, and he'll definitely be asked about it soon enough. Maybe he won't want to answer it, but he's definitely going to be asked it many, many times. What is he going to be? What is it that he wanted to challenge? I'm thinking about him now. Was it that he wanted to be outside of the John Tortorella locker room? Was it because he didn't like Philadelphia, didn't like the city, didn't want to be far from here, there? Who knows? He's started dating someone in California. Who knows? Could be a lot of different reasons. But does it come down to the coaching, the teammates, the organization, the team itself, and its history? Impossible to say. Really impossible to say. He's even very close with Kevin Hayes. So I don't know. Oh, and Kevin Hayes left because of Torts as well. So that's a good point to make. If Hayes left because of Torts and Cutter Gauthier is close with Torts, then maybe that has something to do with it. But at the same time, I'm surprised that the coaches come and go. Tortorella is not going to be with the Flyers in 10 years' time, but Cutter Gauthier could have been there for the next 15, 20, I don't know. Is this the last move the Flyers make for the deadline? I don't know. I think they'd be buyers. I think they'd be buyers come deadline if they're going to continue to be on this pace. What do you think, Drysdale? What line would he be on? I wouldn't be surprised if he's playing top pair right away. He's used to playing plus 20 minutes. Maybe not right away if they want to ease him into Tortorella's system and not just burn him right away. But I would think he could definitely play top pair maybe with Sanheim. I honestly, I'm not following every Flyers game, so maybe I'm saying something egregious. No, you can't break up Sanheim and Ristolainen. How could you? So I could be making a mistake there, but I think absolutely top 4 minutes, and I think he could be on that top pair, eating up those minutes sooner rather than later. And you know what? And Torts has done a good job. I'm speaking of Tortorella in a negative light here because we're speaking about prospects who might not like his harsher approach or just more the harder approach to things. I'm not saying he's a bad coach at all. I'm just saying there are some prospects and younger players who don't like that, and that may hurt. I guess that may hurt the Flyers, right? But I'm definitely not saying that he's a bad coach with the Flyers this year. I think what he's doing is very good with the Flyers. So I think eventually, the goal would be for Drysdale to play top pair. This could be seen as a good buying move for the Flyers, not just long term, but especially this season. This season where they seem to be a team that is possibly going to pounce on a Metropolitan spot or a wild card. I don't know. Second pair with Walker. I could see that. Second pair with Walker. Good point there. And that's the thing. We don't have that quarterback. Was Tony DeAngelo good as that quarterback? His defense was in that 0 percentile. He was at the absolute bottom. Bringing another guy who's similar offensively but better defensively, maybe Drysdale can do what Tony DeAngelo couldn't in that Tortorella system. The only thing I worry about with Drysdale is the injury history and how that affects his development. He's looked okay, but hasn't exactly exploded. This year, he's on pace to score over 40 points, playing those top minutes. So I don't think that's his ceiling either. So I'd say that explosion, we're still waiting on it. I think that as long as he could stay healthy and have a true development, he can develop into that top pair guy. Will he be a Kel McCarr, Adam Fox? I'm not saying that. But I do think he can be a solid 50-point 22, 23 minute guy. Yeah, I could. Yeah, Drysdale would likely take that spot over. It's a very good trade, especially considering the context, if he can stay healthy. If Drysdale does become that guy, even if Cutter Gauthier has a fantastic career, I think Flyers fans can sleep easy knowing that they got a good return. The only question will be if he stays healthy, if he develops well. Impossible to answer now. It'll take years from now. So he'll definitely be booed for years and years and years in Philadelphia for that one. And we'll really want to hear more about it. Is it something personal? Is it something organizational? Man. And that's the thing. It's interesting because he wasn't demanding a trade necessarily. He was just saying, hey, I'm not coming to your team. So the Flyers are the ones that had to say it's our job either to convince him or to just play it out as long as we can and then risk losing him to unrestricted free agency. So I don't know if he demanded the trade, but he definitely was, wanting a trade, I suppose. But I agree that does put a little mark on your character to say I'm not signing for your team so early after being drafted. I hear you. Yeah, I hear you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think I just about wrapped up all my thoughts on this trade. It's very interesting. I want to know a lot more about it. We'll definitely have to learn more as time goes on. As of today, just for pure value, that's a slam dunk win for the Anaheim Ducks. Cutter Gauthier fitting their timeline with the excess they had in Jamie Drysdale because the blue line was so good that he became expendable. They moved out someone that they could afford to live without, and they bring in someone else who's going to fit that timeline a little bit better. And it's someone who just scored 12 points in 7 games, the World Junior Championship, big, solid power forward. He's definitely going to be a plus for the Ducks. The Flyers, on the other hand, needed to move out Cutter Gauthier. It's been months of trying to move him. Coming off the World Junior Championship, his value was never going to be higher. and then they get to move him out for someone who's a risk, yes, but someone who could become a top pair defenseman on their team on that right side, something that they don't have. Put him with Cam York in the future, that could be a great pairing. So definitely time will tell on that one. But I'm glad we could go live, ladies and gentlemen. It was definitely a big surprise. Thank you for joining me here tonight. Subscribe if you haven't already for always breaking news analysis in the real world of hockey. On top of our NHL 24 career simulations, franchise mode, I'm recording a career sim right now, but maybe we should redo the Cutter Gauthier career sim now that he's in Anaheim's system. I should think about doing that maybe. Maybe even a Jamie Drysdale Flyers simulation. I'm really curious about how that would play out. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being here tonight. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe for ongoing content because I love the discussion we had tonight. I'd love to see you back in here again if you haven't been here before. It is a bold move by Danny Briere. He had to make something happen. It was desperate. He was in a weak position, but he got a good return regardless. Now we'll see what happens. And Cutter Gauthier should have said his intentions at the draft. I wonder, when did it switch? Did he know right away? Was it something that happened later? He seemed fired up and ready to go. So I don't know. I don't know. Vinny, thanks for being here. Thank you to everyone for taking the time to be here. We're close to 100 even at some point. Glad to have so many in here discussing the trade. Leave your thoughts down here on YouTube in the comments or over on the Discord server, link in the description. We're always discussing hockey much more. So if you want a place to discuss hockey and discuss trades like this and break it down with other hockey and franchise mode fans, we're over 550 in the Discord server, and we'd love to have you join the mix in there. Link in the description. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining me here tonight. We'll be live tomorrow night on Tuesday, January 9th, on Thursday for our NHL 24 San Francisco Starfleet expansion franchise mode. So a couple of big things coming up a couple of streams coming up later this week. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and I'm looking forward to hearing more of your thoughts down in the comments and on the Discord server. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of your Monday evening. Thank you for joining me, and we'll talk soon. Good night, everybody.